So Kevin Knight has gone from the Jet to the Nightmare as he turns heel on Darby Allin at Double or Nothing. We're going to talk about that and a hell of a lot more twists and turns that we're expecting to see and have happened. This is WrestXtra. Oh, this is a WrestXtra. I'm your boy, A Dazzle, the Black Wrestling Advocate, always joined by my tag team partner. Say his name, he shall appear. That is the man that is Gerard Bonner. My friend, what we're going to kick off with actually is give me a recap of your weekend. Probably not the whole, in depth. We'll talk about that a bit later. But give me a recap of your weekend, what you've been up to, how busy has it been?
Oh man, it's been a busy weekend. It's my kind of weekend though. So Friday night, I'll give you guys a bit of an exclusive. Friday night, I got to call a big show that you guys will be seeing very, very soon. The third annual Shad Gaspard Beast Cup Invitational Tournament. Got the chance to be on the call for that. So you guys will be seeing that fairly soon. And then, of course, that was followed by Ashe 15 in Charlotte. It was so good to be back with the Ashe Wrestling family. An amazing show, which we'll get into. Then came back Sunday, had some other things going on. So it's been a very, very full weekend. But that's how I like it. We're not the kind of people to just sit around and do nothing. No, it's not double or nothing. It's more double than nothing here. And that's what we get to do. So, yeah, it's been a great weekend. How about you?
Nice. I mean, it's a busy weekend for me anyway. Over in the UK, we call this our bank holiday weekend. So, every now and again, there's a Monday every maybe, month or so in the first half of the year where everyone's off. We call it a bank holiday because historically it's the banks that take a holiday. But now it's, a general thing. So the weekend is full of madness, partying, all the rest of it, because no one's going to work on Monday. So that's been a full-on thing as it is. And then on top of that, we had Double or Nothing.
Wrestling all weekend.
We had SmackDown going on. We obviously go all the way back to last week, Tuesday, and everything that's been going on. So, it's been eventful. It's been madness. There's always been something going on. But let's get into one of, not even the only one, but one of, the major talking points for us as Black wrestling fans in the Black wrestling world and just in the wrestling world in general is that our current TBS champion, that is of course Kevin Knight,
or TNT,
TNT. I always say TBS. Don't know why. TNT champion.
We may have a TBS conversation too, but
we will. But the TNT champion Kevin Knight made a very crazy decision following the match between MJF and Darby Allin. MJF has reclaimed the AEW World Championship from Darby Allin, and then attacked him in a sense where Darby was put on a stretcher. It looked as though MJF was going to attack Darby while he was on the stretcher. Kevin Knight comes to make the save, apparently, but it's then Kevin Knight that decided to attack Darby Allin. Now, Gerard, give me one. Again, I ask this question almost every week. It might as well be a section in the show called "Make It Make Sense." Just give me the run through, as in what led up to this. Why would Kevin Knight do this? Why would Kevin Knight attack Darby Allin, who has lost the championship? So it's not like he's going after a championship. How did we get here? How did we get here?
So this is, and I love this, make it make sense. I will start by saying this. I feel like seeds have been planted for a heel turn for Kevin Knight for a much longer time than we've realized. And here's what I mean. I don't think this had as much to do with Darby Allin as it did. If you go back literally months where Kevin Knight went from this, really calm, happy to be here. Hey, I'm just from New Japan. And look, I'm finally here in AEW getting the break that I desire in the States, et cetera, to him becoming this not just super swaggy guy, but this guy that was so confident that it was borderline arrogant. And then I remember very distinctly Tony Schiavone, shout out to the great Tony Schiavone, who would say things on commentary that doesn't sound like things that you would describe a babyface. He would say that, Kevin Knight is almost arrogant, that he's, almost too confident, that he's talking different, that he's acting different. And Kevin Knight would get in the ring and say things that it was super edgy what he would say, and it was on that line that, wait, if I'm watching this for the first time, I don't know who the bad guy is right now, but we took it as, hey, super swaggy, super confident. That's Kevin Knight. In terms of why he would attack Darby Allin, I mean, granted, he lost the world title match to Darby Allin, so that could be part of it. The other thing I'm thinking, though, is here's a guy who just beat MJF a couple of weeks ago, handing MJF a rare loss in a title match. Why do you need to turn on Darby Allin if the world title is still your focus? So that's kind of the move that doesn't make a lot of sense. Granted, him still trying to hang out with the uber nice, super kind tag team partner that he's had all this time doesn't really make a lot of sense. Like, it's clear. I mean, like, it's kind of reminded me of when Shawn Michaels was going through his heel turn with the Rockers all those years ago, where he had the edge, but all right, I'm still hanging with Marty Jannetty, but this whole thing with him and Speedball, it was definitely an odd couple on a lot of levels. So I could see that eventually happening, but I thought if he's going to turn, he'd turn more on Speedball than Darby out of nowhere. I don't know. Maybe it was the concrete jungle, the New York state of mind. I don't know. But whatever it was, here's where we are with the Dark Knight.
Yes, we are. It's crazy. Like, that part of it, in terms of very specifically him attacking Darby Allin, doesn't quite make sense. But in the world of wrestling, I've seen how people have reacted, the comments on the videos and on your Twitters and then on YouTube and all the rest of it. The world of AEW fans seem to love this. It was expected for one. I think we all kind of expected something somewhere, but everyone's loving it. And of course, one of the big positives, if you're just looking at a perspective of how AEW sees Kevin Knight, it's amazing to see that was the closing moment of their biggest show of the year so far. That says volumes about Kevin Knight. We've discussed that kind of thing before, just on how much it kind of shows, and we've seen different things in how AEW views Kevin Knight as the now, as the future, putting so much effort into him, so much trust, and all that kind of thing. So there's that major positive in that respect. But yeah, in terms of the very specific why Darby Allin, I mean, if Darby Allin retained and then Kevin Knight attacked, it would have made complete sense. Absolutely complete sense. But yeah, so and even in the sense where MJF has now won the world championship, and you can almost try and see that, maybe Kevin Knight trying to prove to MJF that he has a bad side or he has a aggressive side or whatever it is. But even that kind of doesn't completely make sense with someone turning heel in order to prove a point to a heel. It doesn't quite. I'm not sure if that was the best way to do it. Heel turn, no problem. Everything leading up to it, the little breadcrumbs, no problem. Perfect. It makes sense that the heel turn happened. But I still think that there was a better way to execute it to make it make complete sense. When it comes to Speedball, I'm sure on Wednesday on Dynamite we'll get some kind of segment to where Speedball is either going to be backstage or in the ring, to where Speedball is going to question Kevin Knight as to why he did what he did. There's going to be some kind of tiff, whether that ends up in physical blows and then a match later on. I'm sure that will happen. I'm more intrigued now in terms of the dialogue and things with MJF and Kevin Knight and what that's gonna look like. What do you think that could possibly look like? Is that, do you think it's going to be a thing where Kevin Knight is like, well, I can show you that I can do this, I've beat you before, so now I'm going to take you on and I'm going to beat you because I've got the extra edge, the extra, aggression in me and whatnot.
One thing AEW is pretty consistent with is they're not really caring if you're heel or face and fighting for a world title. You can be the bad guy and fight another bad guy. That can work. I think if this does anything, this makes us excited about what Kevin Knight could say Wednesday night, because there's going to be a talking point. But I don't, we've learned MJF doesn't play well with others. So I don't know why Kevin Knight would necessarily align himself with MJF, considering, we're in a space where, again, just like 3-4 weeks ago, Kevin Knight beats MJF, successfully defends his championship. So if anybody's in a position to go, I can now beat the world champion, it would be Kevin Knight. So I don't know, but I think this is very interesting. If there is an alliance, personally, I'm not excited about it. And here's why. At this point, Kevin Knight, if he's going to go this far and beat up arguably the top babyface in the company, you don't need to have somebody that you're under. If you're going to have a stable, you need to have somebody that you're over. So to me, MJF would clearly be the leader of this because he's the world champion. And I don't think that bodes well for Kevin Knight at all. I think Kevin Knight has to establish himself as, I don't need anybody to do what I needed to do. And he comes out, now I'm thinking to myself, AEW is arguably the land of the extreme. So I'm just thinking, how extreme is this promo going to be that Kevin Knight's going to cut? Like, how many times? Because he was already cussed as a babyface. So like, what in the world is he going to say as a heel? But I don't think he needs an alliance with MJF. And I think MJF kind of sits back and goes, hey, I don't know why you did it. I didn't need you to do it. I had him, and that could start again, kind of a turf war between those two, because MJF can't be happy with Kevin Knight knowing that Kevin Knight's the last man to beat him. So, like in terms of story, I don't know where this goes. Now, here's another interesting thought. One of the other interesting thoughts is, what if Kevin Knight does this to eliminate Darby Allin from the picture altogether, so Darby can't get an immediate rematch? Like, this might not be as big of a heel turn as we think, as much as it is a strategic move where he just is like, listen, I know you would want a rematch. You defended the title all these times. No, that's not going to happen. I'm stepping up because I'm the last man to beat this man, and I'm going to make sure that they're clear that nobody else gets this shot. So it could be him just eliminating the competition to position himself for a championship opportunity. We'll see how they, work this out. But in my mind, that makes far more sense than MJF and Kevin Knight now having some degree of an alliance.
I kind of see that being a possibility, not the best one, but I do see it as a possibility in the sense that, it'd be nice to see kind of, the two champions, working together, or, that whole, just the visual of it would probably be a very good thing. Kevin Knight with his swag, MJF being MJF as he is. But at the same time, again, it wouldn't make complete sense because Kevin Knight has won over on MJF.
Right.
But then it works in MJF's favor, which would be very MJF of him to then have the person who last beat him kind of underneath him.
Sure.
That's manipulation to the highest. You know what I mean? So that again would add to the dynamic. you talk of alliance, and I remember, we were talking about the breadcrumbs and all the rest of it with Kevin Knight's heel turn and different attitude. Remember when Swerve was in his ears? Maybe that still has a part to play in it. Maybe that might still come up in some way. That's possible. I was also thinking of, we had the Hurt Syndicate. They've mentioned that they're looking for another member. I believe now, if this is how Kevin Knight is, and then with what Syndicate have done in recent weeks, and obviously, teaming up with the Elite, Chris Jericho at Double or Nothing, I believe that door may have shut in terms of Kevin Knight possibly being that new member. But imagine if that might still be the case.
Well, and I would say this, if that is the case, here's an interesting thing. Both of those scenarios that you mentioned leans to the long-term storytelling aspect that AEW has done well over time. Yeah. So, and I would say this, and this might sound wild, if he is hanging with a Swerve or a Hurt Syndicate, it makes more sense to me because those guys clearly are more experienced, and both of them have a lean that would make sense for them to fight against MJF. Whether it's Swerve going, hey, you're the young guy, I told you this is the kind of thing you need to do. Now let's get you in this space. The problem there, though, is Swerve is still very vocal about wanting to be the AEW World Champion. So I can't see Swerve supporting this kind of space for Kevin Knight to go after the world title. Now, here's the other side. The other side of it is Kevin Knight may not, as strange as this sounds, may not be focused on the world title anymore. He may be focused on, hey, I'm going to keep my TNT championship, and I'm not going to let anybody take that from me. In that case, a Swerve connection makes sense, or this Hurt Syndicate piece, because Hurt Syndicate, I'm sure, still has some degree of beef with MJF, and they want to have the world title in their space. So that could be a moment. I think those two options make a bit more sense. There's still some challenge in there, but I think it makes more sense than him just, cozying up to MJF.
I think all in all, I think the best way for this to go for Kevin Knight is, him being solo, him being, too good to be with anyone else, and all the rest of it, on the best TNT champion has ever been, that whole thing there. And I'm not, but my only thing, the only thing that causes the most amount of confusion when you think back and break things down is the thing of him chasing the world championship. Now, obviously, that makes sense. It's the biggest prize in AEW. He's beat the person who is the current champion. But I think that's what lends the confusion, to the whole confusion. If he had lost his TNT championship, maybe that night, the last week, something like, all of this would make complete sense. It would make a hell of a lot more sense, should I say. But unless, Kevin Knight's dialogue, the next time we hear him speak is, I'm the best wrestler here, I'm going to have 2 championships, and that's his actual, goal. Okay, no problem. But again, he definitely has to be, I think for me, he has to be in that space of, I am the best here. I don't need anyone else. I didn't do this for so-and-so. I didn't do this to prove myself to MJF. I didn't do this. I did this to show everyone that I'm here. I am me. And I can beat whoever. And if he doesn't mention that he's beaten the current AEW champion, the whole thing will be pointless.
Right. I agree.
Will be absolutely pointless. It's interesting. It's intriguing to see how this can go. There's so many ways it can go. That's always a good thing. And again, it just the sheer fact that it shows the level of trust and that AEW have in a Kevin Knight to have that spot at the end of their biggest show of the year so far. All of these things with their 2 biggest stars within the company of 2026, of course, current and former world champion. It says a hell of a lot. So it's going to be interesting to see where this one goes. I mentioned this very quickly, and I didn't even think to talk about this, but I'm going to mention it very quickly. We saw the Hurt Syndicate involved in the Stadium Stampede. It's kind of more like a in-ring stampede, but anyway, the Stadium Stampede against right. Ricochet, you know, and the Demand, the Dogs, everyone else that was involved, Andrade, everyone else that was involved.
Right.
Again, we've seen this whole thing of, and I know it's kind of via Chris Jericho, but we have seen this a couple of times, and it's the only few that we've seen with the Hurt Syndicate and the Demand. These two clashing heads, you know, all the time.
Yeah.
Do we need to move on from this? Is this being played out? It's the only feud that each team has been in. Do we need to move away from this now?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's run its course. It's obviously the first feud that Jericho has coming back. Ricochet is kind of beating him up and things like that. To me, there's nowhere else for this to go. Yeah. I mean, after you have the Stadium Stampede match, it's like, okay, both of you find another path right now, because it's, I mean, how many more people can you involve, right? Like, it's just like, what are we doing? You know, okay. Stadium Stampede, you get 15 men involved. Okay, cool. Now we find a way for them to be on the card, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But, I mean, you know, the alliance between Jericho and the Young Bucks, the alliance between Jericho and the Hurt Syndicate, okay, I guess you paid them for that. All right, we can go with that. Very APA of you. I get that. But I think the challenge here is, how many more people and matches does this need? It doesn't need anything else. Let these two move on and do something better. Like the fact that, you know, Ricochet is not going back after the national championship when he's the inaugural national champion. You know, like, what are we doing? Jericho doesn't necessarily need a championship run, but he certainly needs a feud that makes more sense for him. So yeah, I think this is about all we need with this.
And the thing is, for me as well, if, you know, what excited me at first with the whole Jericho Ricochet thing was kind of like, this is going to be, you know, Jericho putting Ricochet over, you know, putting him in a better place again, or putting him back in a better place in AEW, you know, on the card, all that kind of stuff. And I don't know if it's done that. I don't see that really being a thing. Yes, it's kept us entertained. You know, yes, we've got the longest catchphrase in you know, wrestling history, and all the rest of it. But yeah, I think it just needs to move forward, or have, you know, something a bit probably more definitive between Ricochet and Chris Jericho, and then move on with no one else really involved, and then Ricochet probably going on to better things. But yeah, I think that should be the case. Moving back to heel turns and surprises and switching of the guards and whatever you want to call it. We saw last week Tuesday, so DARKSTATE had a tag team championship opportunity against the Vanity Project, and it was SAQUON SHUGARS and DION LENNOX, yes, against the champions that is Vanity Project. And the other two members of DARKSTATE were like, well, if you don't win, then things are going to change. They didn't win, unfortunately. Great match. Amazing match. Absolutely brilliant match from start to finish. Ending was great. But then DARKSTATE, of course, didn't come away with the tag team championships. And what transpired was that SAQUON SHUGARS was then taken out. He was the one that, you know, was pinned in the end. But he was then taken out by the other three members of DARKSTATE. Gerard, was that the right move? Should it have been him? Should it have been DION LENNOX? How excited are we for a possible SAQUON SHUGARS run? Like, there are so many questions, so many things that are coming out of this. How are you feeling about this whole thing and DARKSTATE now being a trio instead of the four?
I think it's very interesting. It seemed as though, for sure, DION LENNOX has been pegged as the guy who's going to get the singles run. But I don't know that I saw DION LENNOX. Well, okay, so in my head, what made sense was DION LENNOX being the one kicked out of the group. because he's the one that made the decision to go after the solo championship, all of those kinds of things. I love that a heel turn was a swerve on all of us. The idea that Sugars would be kicked out is very interesting. Now, with that said, it makes sense. I mean, DION LENNOX being clearly the de facto leader of this group right now, it's an interesting twist where we all seemingly thought that Sugars was the leader of the group. Now, I'll tell you this, for the people who have not followed SAQUON SHUGARS, aka Lucky Ali, before he got to NXT, this dude is a problem. He's not just amazing on the mic, but he is incredible in the ring. You've seen that in a lot of his tag team spaces, but we've never seen him in NXT on a real solo run. So I think we're going to get to see that. Now, here's the question. Who comes alongside him to take on DARKSTATE? I mean, you're looking at anybody from DARKSTATE right now kind of has that Seth Rollins complex in the sense of nobody trusts them because they've done so much damage in the locker room. So I don't know who steps up to try to help SAQUON SHUGARS. I don't know what kind of promo we get from SAQUON SHUGARS after being kicked out of DARKSTATE. But I do think this is not the swerve we thought would happen. I think we all thought that it would be DION LENNOX, you know, stepping out, being the guy. And I don't think he's not going to be the guy, but I think he's the guy with backup. And DION LENNOX with backup is far more dangerous than DION LENNOX without it. So I'm excited to see what this means for SAQUON. They put that boy through the ringer on Tuesday. And it was one of the more violent things we've seen come out of NXT. And that's saying something. So, yeah, I'm excited to see where this is going to go. I don't imagine that Sugars would be on tonight, but if he is, pretty cool. I think he might need a little bit of time to heal and then decide, what do I do moving forward? I do think we see DARKSTATE tonight, you know, talking about taking out the trash. I don't know if they decide to add a fourth member, which I think would be equally interesting. I don't know who that would be. They've got options, and I'll say this. Perhaps the option, yikes, is Keanu Carver. Think about it. Keanu Carver very much fits the DARKSTATE profile. There's zero explanation needed here. And now the only problem is Keanu Carver has always acted like the lone wolf. Hey, I don't need nobody, that type of thing. But I think because he wants success and these guys are aligned in how he operates, that would be a move that makes a whole lot of sense. And it would create even greater problems, I think, for SAQUON SHUGARS.
I think that's a possibility. And the visual of it, what you said, makes complete sense. The only issue would be, obviously, Keanu Carver's come out and has kind of gone after champions or gone after the big man and all that kind of thing. So the dynamic of DION LENNOX then trying to be, a top guy on, in the single space, and then adding a Keanu Carver, you'd have that meeting of the minds already straight away. And it's very interesting because if it ended up being the way around and DION LENNOX was the one kicked out and SAQUON SHUGARS was still there, and then you add a Keanu Carver, in my mind, that problem doesn't exist.
Right.
So I think just the simple fact that it's still DION LENNOX that's there, and, as you said already, he's made it very clear and very well known, and he was the first one to kind of go after singles gold and all that kind of thing. I think that alone would change that dynamic. But a Keanu Carver with DARKSTATE.
And think about this. They've already said that for us to have power, we need gold. So you get Osiris and I can't think of the other guy's name, but the other guy, Shane. But they go after the tag titles again. Keanu could easily go after the North American Championship, and then Dion go after the NXT Championship. We've got the most powerful faction in NXT.
True. And if that was something that they would do, if they were to kind of, add Carver to the mix, that would make a hell of a lot of sense. I'm surprised that wasn't really the conversation that was had when SAQUON was still part of the group. It wasn't the top belt that we're going for was the North American. Yes, I believe Dion Lennox had some kind of chance. I think what was the match again?
Yeah, he fought for the North American title.
Yeah, he fought for North American directly, but then there was the
he was part of that ladder match too. That ladder match when they were trying to decide an NXT champion and Joe Hendry won.
Exactly. Yeah. So there was that. That was probably the only time they had that direct, going for the NXT championship. But they was in hot pursuit for the North American championship. If it was a thing where SAQUON was going for that and then Dion was going for world champion, then we wouldn't have this issue that we've got now with them now having to feel the breakup. Go on.
No, I was going to say, as I think about it, the fact that Dion Lennox was going after the NXT champion or the North American championship, that he handed over his tag team championship, it was just almost like there was never a plan seemingly within DARKSTATE for SAQUON to be the guy. And I think that is very interesting because if you have the other two as the tag team champions, you have Dion as the NXT North American Championship. At no point did they have a conversation. Yeah, and SAQUON, you can run the brand. Never. So if I'm SAQUON, I'm like, you guys took advantage of me as a strategist. You took advantage of me because of my mind, because I would talk the talk and you guys could barely walk the walk. I had to hype you up. I was the one that would go out and do all of these things. So truth be told, I made you. I didn't need you. And now you're going to turn on me? Oh, there's hell to pay. Like that. That's how I would position that for SAQUON, because he's the talker. He's the guy that got them into a lot of situations. And so that's how I position that you guys never saw me as the NXT champion. You didn't even see me as the North American champion. You just saw me here. Matter of fact, the only way you let me have tag team gold because you handed it to me.
And the thing is, that was mentioned. He said that a month or so ago. He said that to the other Knicks. He mentioned the fact that so just because you so and so you but you handed me the tag team championship, so that could that should definitely be something that's brought up in some way when they do kind of have their interaction or something like that, or when SAQUON kind of lets it all out at some point in time, definitely. I'm going back to what you said about Dion Lennox. We thought it was going to be Dion Lennox on his own and him doing his solo thing and go for whatever he needs to go for, or have to deal with DARKSTATE before going for the North American Championship. But you were very right in saying Dion Lennox doing his solo thing, but with backup, is insane to me. I've very much been, a massive fan of Dion Lennox during the DARKSTATE era. Seeing just how good he can be with his aggression, much better on the mic, much more confident in everything that he's doing in the ring, on the mic, all of that. And I was, in my mind, I was thinking, I feel as though this guy's ready for some kind of, singles run, singles championship. Being in that picture for a long time, establishing himself in that way. But I didn't think it was going to be like this.
Right.
I didn't even think about it. I didn't even think about it being a thing where, yes, he's the one going for the singles and he's the one that's also then got the backup. it makes a hell of a lot of sense. It actually makes more sense again than a SAQUON SHUGARS having the backup. It would make sense for SAQUON having the backup in the sense of him being devious, you know, having been that type of heel, the type of heel that kind of needs the distraction and needs to win, you know, illegally, all the rest of it. Whereas Dion is more of a, you can see him beating everyone, but then him having backup is kind of like, well, if he does start beating people, if he does start, you know, telling people or making statements that he's the best and whatnot, who's gonna argue with him when he's got those two big men behind him as well?
Right.
And that's the difference here. That's a lot scarier than a crafty heel.
Yes.
But now I'm seeing SAQUON now. It actually makes more sense for SAQUON to be the face because he's got more lovable, you know, he's got more lovable characteristics. He can still be a little bit devious, a little bit cunning, a little bit more, you know, sly, all these kind of things. He can kind of do the Eddie Guerrero thing and be the in face. You know, and all of those kind of things. So that would make a lot of sense. And you know, the NXT faithful love SAQUON as it is already as well. Anyway, so yeah, I'm intrigued to see where this one goes. I mean, you know, we're gonna have SAQUON versus Dion. We're gonna have that. We're gonna see that dynamic. We're gonna see how that plays out. DARKSTATE or SAQUON having to overcome DARKSTATE in some way, and all these things. But you know, after that, what do you see? Not necessarily the ceiling, but you know, the highest heights that SAQUON can go to in NXT.
I mean, I think the highest heights is obviously the NXT Championship. There is a story there if he's going after Tony D'Angelo, given what Tony D'Angelo did to DARKSTATE, and he was a part of that. So he absolutely could and should go after that. I think it would be interesting to see him go after the North American Championship. You know, whether he's taking that off of Miles Bourne or if he's taking that off of DION LENNOX. I mean, I think you've got a story there, and us watching the ascension, the climb for SAQUON. I think this is a scenario where the climb becomes important, where we don't want to rush this. We don't want to cook it too fast. We need to let this thing simmer and give the fans an opportunity, because you could make an argument that Sugars has potential to be the #1 guy in NXT. He's got the personality. He's got the swag. He's got that charisma and that it factor that makes you go, I like this guy. You know, I like him a lot. And to your point, like if he becomes the heelish face, which is he's still clever, he's still finding ways to overcome his opponent, but people like him because they turned on him. Absolutely. So I think we could be, and in a division, the men's division specifically, that has seemingly trailed the women's division in NXT for a few years now, they need new singles stars that they've been able to build, stars that we've been going on the journey with. Because I'll tell you, Tony D'Angelo is the NXT champion. They're sort of making us care about him, but the key word is sort of. I still am not a Tony D'Angelo fan. I don't think Tony D'Angelo, for whatever accolades they're throwing on him, I don't think he's the guy who you send to the CW's events. I don't think he's the guy that does press. I don't think he's the guy that gets people interested in the PLEs, in the weekly show, or anything else like that. I think he's I know this is a strong opinion, but I think he's the NXT champion almost out of seniority. You know, he's the guy that came up through the PC and, all right, we're going to reward you. But dude, you're no Joe Hendry. You know, you're no one. You're definitely no Obafemi. You're no Trick Williams. You're no Carmelo Hayes. You're not any of the exciting NXT champions that we have loved over time. So who are these people going to get behind? They're far more behind Mason Rook right now. And they'll definitely be behind SAQUON SHUGARS. So I think we build him so that maybe by the time we get to Stand and Deliver, we've got a viable opponent for the NXT champion that can be crowned during that event.
And this is the thing with Tony D'Angelo, of everyone else that you've mentioned, of everyone else that, you know, both male and female, who have gone on from NXT to the main roster in the last maybe 2 years. Every single one of them you've looked at and said, yep, they should be on the main roster. Or you know, we've been chomping at the bit, biting our nails, waiting for, oh, why are they not on the main roster yet? Why don't I? I'm not looking at Tony D'Angelo and thinking, why are you not on the main roster?
Nope.
Like, not once. I'm thinking,
nope.
Yeah, no.
Right.
And it's a shame because I do much prefer this new attitude, this new look, all the rest of it, compared to the Italian Mafia boss gimmick and, you know, over the top. I'm still questioning whether that his voice is still his actual real voice, and if it's not, he needs to ditch it very quickly. If it is, then Godspeed. But you know, it's like this new character is fine, but I still feel like there's still needs to be more to be explained, or the execution there's still something missing in it. And I'm not sure what that is. I can't explain it. I don't even know what the answer is to my own question in that respect. You know, but going back to Sugars and where he can go, it's crazy when you stop and think that if you want to, you know, list all the things that make a great wrestler and why we love them and how they're going to be successful and all these kinds of things, he ticks more boxes than a Trick Williams does. And look at Trick Williams. Exactly. He is Trick Williams times 10 and a very, 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 very good technical wrestler.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Like, so we're now in this space where they have to get this right. They have to get this climb, this pursuit, you know, his trajectory. You know, they have to get this right. And in my mind, as you were kind of talking about all of this as well, I'm thinking to myself, okay, what's the timeline for this? What's the story between all you know, with these guys? And in my mind, I'm thinking, I see obviously, you know, Dion and SAQUON will have their thing. I see Dion probably getting the upper hand in some way at some point, possibly by cheating. The other two get involved. That then leads to him going after the North American Championship. I see DION LENNOX becoming North American Champion before SAQUON SHUGARS does. And then SAQUON SHUGARS comes back for Dion, or has always been there, comes back, and he then takes it from Dion. Dion then goes for the NXT Championship at some point, however long down the line that is, and becomes NXT Champion before SAQUON. And then SAQUON comes again. Possibly, I don't know if this part has to happen. I don't think this part has to happen. But maybe SAQUON takes the NXT Championship from Dion again. You know what I mean? Or takes that championship from him. That part I don't think is as important, but I do see it being a thing where DION LENNOX, you know, gets the accolades before SAQUON. And that's only because it's just easier. I think he's just positioned a little bit better to where it's easier. And again, because he's got the backup, because he's been the one that's you know, gone after singles titles or has had more opportunities and come closer to being a singles champion than SAQUON has. And I think we also need the time to establish SAQUON as a face. Him being a character outside of DARKSTATE and what that looks like, how we make that happen. Whereas Dion now is kind of like, okay, we know who he is. We know what he's a part of. We know what he's about. So yeah, I kind of see that being a thing, and their rivalry becoming one of those, you know, the rivalries that we've seen kind of established in NXT, then go on to being, you know, a main roster thing like Sammy and Kevin Owens. You know, if you didn't know them before NXT, you know that was their, that was their thing way before either of them got into NXT. Right. We've seen it become a thing on there. The Johnny Gargano, Tommaso Ciampa, and more recently, we'll talk about it in a second. More recently, obviously, you know, Carmelo Hayes, Trick Williams as well. I kind of see this being very much that. The other one that I see being something, or potentially being something like that as well, is Tavion Heights and Miles Bourne. With the way that their friendship is breaking down and is crumbling, I see that being a very interesting dynamic as well. That can has time to establish itself over the years. As much as Tavion Heights has gone after the NXT Championship, I think it makes a bit more sense, and especially with the rivalry as well, that Tavion now goes for Miles Bourne, or them to kind of butt heads and have that feud and rivalry for the North American Championship. It's crazy, interesting, and beautiful to see that, this time last year we were struggling to kind of name singles guys in the men's division on NXT.
Yeah.
Whereas now, it almost feels like there are too many. It almost feels.
But this is a good problem though, because it now gives us a lot of potential directions, and it doesn't make things as super obvious and clear, which is great, And so it's like we have watched, and this is the beauty of development. We've watched Tavion Heights move to that space. We've watched Miles Bourne move to that space. We've watched all of DARKSTATE move to that space. We've watched D'Angelo move to that space. And now you start infusing new guys like Cam Hendricks, and you're infusing Mason Rook and Tristan Angels and all of these guys who now we go, I'm pretty interested in them. We've got some elements here in the men's division that we didn't have before. And what I like is we're not solely dependent on veterans who have shown up to NXT. Right. So we don't have to grab somebody from SmackDown or Raw or from AEW or any place else like that. We're able to either go homegrown or go indies, and we're in a space where it's like, oh yeah, this is cool. We've got Naraku, or AKA Evil, right? Who now serves in that veteran role.
Yes.
But coming from New Japan, we're looking at, again, something very different. So there are a lot of new elements right now in NXT where they have built that men's division to where now we can go, all right, we got options in the men's and women's division. Let's watch this show.
Right. And I think that has brought me back. I mean, it never has. It's always been, NXT has been my number one show for a good few years.
For years.
But I do feel like it kind of, for me, my interest kind of died down just a little bit, especially when we had, the Obafemi problem in terms of who can beat Obafemi. What's the point in, anyone else being there, and, it's almost impossible to beat him. But now I'm just like, it's insane the amount of stories, different directions that we've seen so far, or the last, few 3 or 4 weeks. Your Mason Rooks, your Tristan Angels, Cam Hendricks is trying to put himself out there, and all of that as well. And it's crazy. What's the young Spanish guy as well?
Oh yeah.
With the return. Of
Noam Dar.
Noam Dar as well. I love the fact that there are now so many elements, so many stories and feuds that can be told on different levels of the card as well. And that there's this thing where it's not obvious as to where someone's going to be week in, week out as well.
Right.
Because you've had Cam Hendricks go after the NXT champion, but yet squabbling over who faces the North American champion, and vice versa. Like it's crazy. It's crazy. As I mentioned, Tavion Heights, he attacked the NXT champion, but I think it's probably best that he goes for Miles Bourne, because you've got that story too that can easily be told. The dynamics is brilliant. It's beautiful, and we've had that in the women's division for a long time. And that's kind of reestablishing itself as well, with so many people going and shift changes as well. And Kalani Jordan is gonna be, I hope, and I think it needs to happen. I'm not the biggest fan of Lola Vice. I'm sorry, I'm really not.
Oh wow.
I'm not. I don't know what it is. Something just doesn't work. I don't know. But I really want to see Kalani Jordan become the NXT Women's Champion. I think that's something that has to happen sooner rather than later. And I think one of the other reasons why is not because I'm Kalani biased necessarily, but at the same time, I think it just offers more entertaining matches and a more entertaining run than I think a long Load of Vice run as NXT Women's Champion does. I just see Kalani having better matches with Kendall Gray, with Izzy Dame, even with Azaria if we get to that, and so many others within the division. I just want to. I think it's that. I think it's that I want to see more than anything. But moving on, still holding on to our NXT association. We've seen, of course, I mentioned this whole feuds carrying on, starting in NXT, carrying on into the main roster, and we're seeing that happening and taking fruition in Carmelo Hayes and Trick Williams right now. They had a match, and it was for the United States Championship on SmackDown on Friday, just gone. Very great match, brilliant match. Obviously, Carmelo was kind of cheated out of picking up the win. Of course, Little Yachty had to get involved. It was always going to happen. That was always the dynamic. That was always going to be the way. But in terms of this feud, in terms of the way they've executed it so far, in terms of what it could be in the future, how are you feeling about these two now finally kind of having this whole thing on the main roster?
I think it's definitely time. I think my concern is I didn't want that first match randomly happening on SmackDown. The fact that we're closing out the chapter with Samuel Zayn, and then we have this match with The Miz last week. Cool. Yeah. I'd like to have seen somebody else step in there with, again, conversation happening with Carmelo Hayes that will lead us eventually to this title match that happens in a marquee space. That's a match that should have happened, I think, either on a PLE or, good grief, let it happen in the first or second round of the upcoming King of the Ring tournament. Like, let's put that there where it's somewhere where I need to tune in and where there's some promotion for it. Like, literally, when you tuned in to SmackDown Friday night, you had no clue that you were going to get that match. Now, let's just think about this. Does it make sense that you don't promote a former main event of Stand and Deliver? That doesn't make sense to me.
Right.
2 years ago, these guys were the main event of Stand and Deliver. And now it's just randomly happening on an episode of SmackDown. I enjoy the new elements. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of Lil Yachty. I'm not. But the Ricky Starks piece adds a different element. Like, I like seeing these things that you don't necessarily plan for, but then you realize I didn't know I needed that, and if this leads, I think at some point to a triple threat, that'd be amazing. But I just wasn't a fan of this being where Trick pins Carmelo. I would have been far better with Ricky Starks interfering. We don't get a clean answer. Almost like what happened with Carmelo and Ilya Dragunov, where somebody came in and interfered, and it was like, we didn't get a winner from this great match. We got to run it back. I think that's the space we should have been in if we're going to randomly get Trick and Carmelo. Because the problem now is you've shown that Trick has pinned Carmelo, and you have Ricky Starks lurking in the background, and there's been more attention on Starks versus Hayes than Trick versus Hayes. So are you telling me this is a lead-in to, okay, Ricky and Carmelo and who will end up fighting for the... I wasn't a fan of that. Glad that, again, I would have preferred to see Trick and Melo at WrestleMania. for the U.S. title with Melo as the champ, but we didn't get that. As they're stacking this card for, Clash in Italy on Sunday or stuff for King of the Ring, there were other bigger places we could have put this, and we could have told that story for those who weren't watching NXT all of those years. We didn't do any of that. So that, I think, is something I wasn't crazy about. They had an amazing match. I think their match Friday night was better than the main event that they had at Stand and Deliver. Far better, so it showed the growth of Trick Williams, but I just don't think that should have just randomly happened on a Friday night.
Yeah, very true. And that was my problem with it as well. It kind of just happened. And even the first time they actually really interacted on SmackDown, again, it was kind of like it just happened kind of situation. There was no build up. There was no kind of real history to it. Even with commentary, they didn't say much about their history. Obviously, they've said that they used to be best friends, blah, blah, but it wasn't, they didn't build it to where, you're giving us some gravitas to the situation and all of those things. The joke is, just minutes before we came on air and whatnot, I watched a clip of Mark Henry talking about their feud and whatnot as well, and talking about how the shift change in their dynamic, because it was Trick Williams that was the guy that was looking up on at ringside, looking up at Carmelo as he raised his hand, told him title belts and whatnot, and now they're on the same level, arguably, with Trick Williams being a little bit higher than Carmelo, in certain aspects, and I don't think that's been mentioned enough. That's not been built enough on commentary in terms of the match, and any kind of interaction between the two of them. I mean, it's even rare that you hear former NXT champions being called former NXT champions on the main roster. And I'm not sure why that. I mean, I would understand that 4 or 5 years ago, during the time Vince was in charge and whatnot, and there was this disconnect between the main roster and NXT. Get it? Whereas now the disconnect isn't there, so I don't understand why that's not something that's mentioned all the time, just as much as it would be mentioned that Bayley is a former 4-time women's champion, and Rhea's been done this, and Randy Orton's done so and so many time championships, and The Miz is a 2-time Grand Slam champion, and why are they not talking about Carmelo being a former champion, former North American champion, and the both guys being former champions, and Ricky Saints getting involved, and he's a former NXT champion, and he beat Owen. Give us more. Yeah. Like, yes, it's great that these three of them are coming together. I'm sure there's gonna be a triple threat somewhere. There has to be. Who comes out on top? I don't think I care if the story is done correctly. Whoever comes out on top and comes out as United States champion, all good, no problems there. Yeah. But it just needs to be more of a build, and I'm not sure why it's not happening. I'm not sure what that is, because I'm thinking in my head, surely you're putting them three together because of what they did in NXT, because they showed themselves, and because you now trust it because of what they did in NXT, and NXT was their proving ground and their development and blah, blah, blah. Let us know that. You know what I mean? Let us know that that's what it is. Again, like you said, a no contest would have been much better on Friday. A no contest would have been way much better. And yes, it was because of distractions and cheating and whatever else as to why Trick Williams won. But the visual of him pinning Carmelo, it kind of, I think it's slightly, it's not the end of the world. No way is it the end of the world, but I think it's slightly messed up the visual of what this can be, where we can go. But I definitely see it being a butting of heads of Carmelo and Saints, first of all. While I think Carmelo's going to chase after Williams. But Saints is going to be a thorn in the side, so Carmelo will have to switch his focus a little bit. But then I think we'll get to a place where there's a triple threat match. Clash in Italy, will it happen there? I don't know if that would be too early. Not sure. Not sure. Or maybe we have the triple threat in order to get that out of the way and then to push or focus more on Hayes versus Williams for the United States. But we'll see what happens there. It should be interesting. The other interesting part, we were talking about titles, is Javon Evans. Javon Evans had his Intercontinental Championship match against Penta, and terrific match. Brilliant match. I absolutely loved the ending. The seesaw of, effect of the ending. So good. So good. And usually when we've seen Javon go after titles before and he's not quite made it, not quite got the job done, his hands are raised by his opponent and he takes it. He's happy. He's okay. He's, all good. No problem. All right. I'll come back for you. This time around, it was, don't raise my hand. I don't want to hear it. And I know that later on he apologized backstage, but that disappointment in himself, that frustration was still in his face. Do you see that developing more? Is that gonna be the next heel turn on WWE, or are we just seeing a different side of Javon Evans?
First of all, again, I love the match. That moment at the end of the match was highly unexpected, but very welcomed. Yeah. At some point, you have to get frustrated with the fact that you still haven't won a championship. You got to get frustrated with that. There's no way that this man has gone through winning the deadline situation, the Iron Survivor, cashing in his moment to become champion, losing previous title opportunities, now getting the main roster, gets to WrestleMania, has highlight moments, but doesn't win. There's no way you keep losing and you're not frustrated. You're past the point of being happy to be here. No. I'm on Netflix and I'm here to win a championship. So now it's about time. Now, here's the thing I thought about. I thought about when that happened, who should have been waiting for him backstage was Kofi Kingston. Kofi Kingston should have been right there to be able to say, I told you, man, listen, I've proven that I can win championships and I got the thing for you to do it. But we were robbed of that. So I don't know who takes Javon under their wing right now. I don't know who's the one who sits back and says, brother, I know you got all the potential in the world, but this is the edge you need. This is what's going to get you past Penta and get you into a championship space. Because we need to see that edge for Javon, but who's going to be the one to do it? So I love it. This is absolutely the start of that new edge for him. Does he need a heel turn? Here's the thing. I don't think he has to go angry on the fans for him to get angry in the ring. And I think, last week we were talking about complexity. I think we need the complexity of him saying, man, I love all the people. But truth be told, it's got to happen here in the ring. And listen, you can love me or hate me, but I'm going to do what I got to do to get it done in the ring. And if that means you don't like me, all good. But if you do, all good. But I got to win a championship. Like, that's what needs to happen for him, because now we're going to see him be edgy. And it kind of, this is crazy, it kind of reminds me of what's been going on with Vikingo in AAA. Like, okay, you're super skilled. In this case, it's the people that turned on him. And so he just finally embraced it. But I think we're in a moment where you get a heel Javon, or you get to see him starting to be influenced. Like, this isn't the match that takes him over the top, but it's clear that all of these losses are leading. Because when's the last time we've seen a Javon Evans win? It was prior to WrestleMania when he qualified for that championship. But think about it. After that, here it is. He becomes the first loss for the debuting Ethan Page. And then, now he's in a space. Now, we did see him, I think, he did beat Rusev. He did beat Rusev, but that was a month ago.
Right.
That was a month ago. We've seen him in tag matches. We've seen, but again, you got to be able to win the big one. And so I think he needs somebody in his ear, somebody who's going to bring that dog out. And I don't know, maybe, just maybe, I know they're probably not going to do it because, he's already tied up in other things. But I think we need a moment, and this is how they do it, in passing, backstage, or something else going on, and we see, because they've been doing this well, dropping these breadcrumbs at the end. You'll have him in a corner somewhere, and he's talking to somebody. You can see him frustrated, and then that somebody's like, this is what you got to do. And the somebody is Booker T.
Ooh.
Let Booker T get in that young man's ear and tell him, listen, it's about checks and championships. You let him tell him, I know you like all of this, but listen, I had to do what I had to do, and I became a 6-time world champion. I had all these tag teams. I didn't do it paying attention to the people. I know you love the people, but listen, do you want checks and championships, or do you want high fives? And it's Booker T who brings out the dog in Javon.
That would make a lot of sense. That would make a hell of a lot of sense. Gosh. I think the only other realistic possibility in terms of someone in his ears and whatnot, it's not going to be the same dynamic as we expected with a Kofi Kingston. Not the same dynamic as you're suggesting with a Booker T. But I think I see something very similar to what he did just before he left NXT with Miles Bourne, is an Ethan Page in his ears telling him he needs to do this, he needs to do that, blah, blah, blah. Maybe in the sense where Ethan Page, being as crafty as he is, it kind of like he's giving him advice in order to make Javon Evans feel as though he's getting better or he needs to do something, to win championships. But it actually messes up his chances and then allows Ethan Page to get closer to the Intercontinental Championship. I mean, we're kind of seeing that with how Ethan Page moves with Rusev already. It's kind of like, it's crafty. He's obviously thinking only of himself.
I got one more name for you.
Yeah, I see that being a thing.
Yeah, the other option here, because in my mind, I think Javon Evans talking to the OGs. I see the OGs coming to him. So if it's not going to be Booker, I got another name for you, which makes a whole lot of sense. And that is the world's strongest man, Mark Henry.
Oh, yeah.
You bring Mark Henry here and you tell him, hey, listen, young man, I love you, but if you're going to be I became a world champion when I introduced people to the Hall of Pain. You need to, he brings out that dog. I'm telling you, no, you're not, you can't lift 500 pounds. You're not the world's strongest man, but you're the world's fastest man. You're the world's best acrobat. I need you to go out there and prove it. And I'm telling you, you have a moment like that, and you bring Mark Henry in to just get in his ear, to stay there and watch some of his matches, they ain't gonna mess with Mark Henry. You got a whole different dynamic. Mark Henry, Booker T, somebody make that happen.
And when you look at the roster on Raw as well, you can't. There is actually no one else would make sense in terms of where they're positioned at the moment, what they're doing, who they are, what they've done. No one fits the bill of what Kofi could have been, or was probably going to be to Javon Evans. I definitely don't see Javon having to go all the way heel. I don't think we need to go there, but I think that ultimate tweener type, or that kind of, You know, I know what I need to do in order to win championships. Or there's something I've been holding back. I didn't want to do it, but I'm going to have to do it in order for me to win something. I'm going to have to be a bit crafty. I'm going to have to bend the rules a little bit. If you like it, if you don't like it, tough. If you do, then okay, ride with me. Yeah. But you know, it's just what I have to do in order to be better. You know, for myself. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I don't think it needs a full heel turn. I don't think it does at all. But you know, a couple of the things that he did during the match were like, oh, you know, when they're doing a little walk together and then boom, he hits him with a knee.
Yeah.
We're doing competition, hits him with a kick or a knee, or whatever it was. You know, those things I think definitely need to be added to his game a little bit. And yeah, that frustration, that aggression definitely needs to come out. But I don't think we need to see a heel Javon Evans in order for that whole thing to work. And I think we have enough already in terms of the Intercontinental Championship picture at the moment anyway, with Rusev and Ethan Page anyway. But yeah, I think we need to see something come out from Javon. It's going to be interesting. The other thing that happened on Raw as well, you know, we're talking about heel turns, we're talking about shifts, we're talking about singles runs. The other one that we're expecting, and I feel I'm now getting a little bit more excited by it. After what transpired on Raw with the Street Profits, we've seen, you know, since they've returned, you know, we've had the Seth Rollins in their rear talking about let's join forces in order to beat division. You know, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, all these kinds of things. And Montez Ford is just not having it. You know, Seth, you've done this to yourself. No one likes you. You've done all these things. You've cut ties. You've burnt bridges. What makes you think that I'm doing this for you? But Angelo Dawkins has kind of been left in the middle, trying, you know, seeing both sides of the story, both sides of the coin. But following Logan Paul being announced that he's injured, he's going to be out for a few months, Austin Theory decides to go on a revenge spree, takes out Joe Hendry, and also taken out Angelo Dawkins. And this is during a match between Montez Ford and Seth Rollins. With the nature of the way Austin Theory took out Angelo Dawkins, you know, using a chair, slamming his head in between the chair and the steel of the ramp, more than likely Angelo Dawkins is going to be out for a couple of weeks, maybe at least 1 or 2 weeks. And Montez Ford has said to Rusev, all right, this is something that we have to deal with. Is this enough to get you excited about a possible Montez Ford singles run? Angelo Dawkins out of the picture. It's more than likely we'll probably see, you know, a Montez Ford versus Austin Theory match, a Montez Ford versus Bron Breakker match. Is this going to be the lead? And obviously we saw Seth Rollins versus Montez Ford singles match. Is this the lead up to this singles Montez Ford run that we've been waiting for years upon years and had a, you know, we're getting back to it. Are we getting what we want? Are we getting what we want?
I hope so. Waiting any longer to pull the trigger on this is detrimental because, truth be told, I think most of us had already figured we're not getting it. You know, we had a World Tag Team title match Saturday night, and it was just kind of like, all right, okay, you know. But I think, to me, what excited me was when they just went on and announced Seth versus Montez Ford. Let's just be clear. Seth Rollins is still very much at the top of the card. He's still very much the top guy, arguably, on Raw. You know, granted, of course, you got Roman Reigns, but Roman has always been in his own element. But if there's going to be somebody who's in that conversation with Roman, it's Seth. They purposely keep them apart. But man, you put a singles match between him and Montez, you've made a statement about Montez. And Montez had an incredible showing to the point where you forgot that he was part of a tag team. You weren't looking for Dawkins. You weren't looking for any of that stuff. And he showed it. So the fact that they took Dawkins out of the picture says we got to pay attention to Montez now. And so that was telling to me. If this was just a one-off and then, you know, Dawkins came back and said, all right, y'all got that out of your system now. Let's go back and do whatever. No, you take Dawkins out of the picture. Yeah, we have no choice but to look. And you're putting Montez potentially alongside Seth, not necessarily in a tag team, but in a space that we're working together. Oh yeah, we got something. We got something, and we don't have something in the mid-card space. Let's be clear. This is not him going after the Intercontinental Championship. This is him being placed in the top portion of the card against the top heels on Raw, being the Vision. We are somewhere cooking, guys. Let's strap on our seatbelts and enjoy whatever this looks like.
And here's the other thing as well. You know, you say they took Dawkins out of the picture. They took Dawkins out of the picture before they took Dawkins out of the picture because Dawkins didn't come inside with Montez Ford.
Correct. And they talked about that.
Yeah, usually you'd get, even with the interaction that they had backstage, you'd probably still get Dawkins coming out with Montez, but kind of being on the side where it's like, you know, almost kind of calming him down every 2 seconds, telling you, it's not, that's it, let's not, can you calm down? Let's not, you know what I mean? But he wasn't there at all. The focus was on Montez and Seth, and that was it. And then when he, you know, and again, if Dawkins came out with Montez and it was ringside, he would have been taken out maybe during the match or whatever else. As he's on our ringside, someone jumps the barrier, boom, attacks him, whatever. But instead, we make an actual bigger statement in terms of we're taking Dawkins out, with Dawkins just randomly walking from the back. Don't know where he was going. I don't know what he was about to do.
Right.
Walk from the back for no reason. Comes out from the back, boom, gets attacked. And then in the manner that he was attacked and the way that it was, you know, steel meets steel and in between the steel of the chair and of the ramp, that's usually a few weeks off TV, usually. Sometimes longer in certain ways. You know what I mean? When Edge used to do the concerto thing and whatnot, that person would be out for forever. Randy Orton started doing it. Person's out for weeks and all of that. So again, that makes a statement. As you said, put him in the ring with Seth, putting Montez in the ring with Seth. Major statement. And I think just again, you know, the next couple of weeks we're gonna see some singles action from Montez. I think that says a lot. And here's the other thing that people forget. I saw a clip from a podcast, can't remember what the podcast is called. And they were talking about this whole thing with Montez and the singles run and kind of saying, okay, and I think it probably aired before Raw last night. Talking about, they're probably never going to do it. You know, they're probably never going to give us the singles run for Montez because it's been so long and it's been this and it's been that and they could have done it by now and blah, blah, blah. Here's the thing that people forget. Remember when Montez and Bianca had their own series, the little documentary thing that they did? And that whole topic came up about Montez doing the singles run. What was the thing that Montez said? Because of where Bianca was positioned,
right?
He didn't take the shine away from Bianca. Well, guess what, guys? Bianca's not there right now and won't be there for at least 2 years. It's time for us to pull the trigger on Montez Ford. He doesn't have to worry about taking the shine off his wife.
Right.
He doesn't have to worry about anything else. It's now time for Montez to do his thing. And I believe that the main reason why we didn't get it wasn't because WWE didn't want to do it, because we saw that they wanted to do it at one point when he had the elimination match.
Yes.
I believe Montez has held back. Maybe it's a courage thing. Maybe again doesn't want to take the shine from his wife. All these other things, still unsure about, you know, what it means for Dawkins and what that might look like. But again, he has more reason to be confident about, one, what happens with Dawkins and what a singles career for Dawkins looks like. because everyone's already kind of put themselves in a place where they're seeing Dawkins and Montez on a similar playing field now, than as opposed to Montez all the way up here, Dawkins all the way down there.
Right.
As I said, his wife's now, with child. She's going to be out of the picture for at least another, year to 2 years. And I think as well, not just Montez needed to make money because his wife's not working, but also that, I feel as though Raw is missing a couple of people on the single side of things. SmackDown just feels like it's just in a place where there's almost too many. We talked about your Ricky Saints, Trick Williams, Carmelo. Whereas Raw's missing people. Kofi and Xavier have gone. We're kind of any kind of overwatering is on the mid card and not the upper part of the card. There's no CM Punk at the moment. There's no Drew McIntyre at the moment. The only two at the top are Reigns and Fatu doing their thing. There's kind of no in between, really. Jay's back doing the tag team thing and being Roman's lackey again. You know what I mean? LA Knight, he's where he is, but there's no real direction as to where he's going and what that means for him as well. So yeah, maybe it's now. I think it's the perfect time, situation, and whatnot for us to build Montez Ford. And again, the way they've done it, it wasn't Montez and Dawkins having an argument and Montez turning on Dawkins. Dawkins was literally just taken out of the picture. I don't know what that means for Dawkins. I'm a little bit scared for what that means for Dawkins, but at the same time, it's very, very good for Montez Ford, and I think it needs to happen. With that being said, in terms of the dynamic of Montez and Rollins, there has been talk, minor talk, of Montez possibly ending up with the Vision. How real do you think that could be? How possible is that? And just in general, what does this Montez-Seth dynamic look like moving forward?
Well, I mean, I think anything is possible. And I think Montez under the tutelage of Paul Heyman, sign me up. Sign me up. Like, the reality of it is, but here's the tough part. The tough part is, can a Montez and Braun Breaker coexist in the same group? No. I think Montez very much wants to be a solo star and wants to be a world champion. We haven't heard him say that, but I think, for him choosing to be, I think, a really good husband and say, I'm going to give my wife the shine, and she's now chilling, I'm sure, saying, go shine, baby, go shine. I don't see him, again, sitting on the side with Braun Breaker. They would have to figure out how that particular dynamic works, because I don't see one of them going for the Intercontinental Champion and the other going for the world title. Montez, I think, has to be in that title picture. Though, again, if there's a way for him and Heyman to work together, I'm not mad at it. I don't think we have a long-term alliance between him and Seth. I don't think that's the case. I do think this alliance does push Montez into the upper echelon of Monday Night Raw.
And here's the thing. Yes, we would have the dynamic of who's the top guy in the group in terms of a Montez Ford and a Braun Breaker. But there is still a way to still kind of establish the hierarchy or the level between the two, because who's had more opportunities at being the world champion than the other? Braun Breaker. Who has held singles gold where the other one hasn't? Braun Breaker. So, as much as Montez has the potential and we want to see it, And you rightly said as well, Gerard, that, you know, Montez hasn't actually said these words about chasing the world championship. He did, of course, say to Seth when they were in the back, you know, let's see who's the best and whatnot. And he believes in himself in that respect. But he doesn't have the record or the resume to really position himself over Bron Breakker in that sense, in terms of who's the main man in the division, who goes for the world championships, who is the guy that we focus on being the single star or the better single star or higher on the card in that respect. So that could help establish who the person at the top is within the group. But at the same time, I think for me, and I think it would be a very, very good thing. Personally, I think it would be a very good thing, even with Montez searching to or going towards being a single star. I think it would definitely still be a very good thing for him to position himself within the division. But I think for him, it needs to also be maybe not obvious straight away, but very quickly. I think it needs to be established that Montez Ford has done this for himself. Mm-hmm. So not for the vision of the vision, but as an opportunity to get closer to what he wants and still be selfish, even with 3 or 4 other guys around him. You know, I think that needs to be made clear. As you said, I don't think it needs to be a long-term thing. I don't want it to be a long-term thing. I think it almost purposely needs to be a short-term thing. But I definitely think it needs to be I'm doing this because I need to position myself. And here's the other thing, and I know it wasn't something that we were supposed to know necessarily, but it has been something that has been quietly and cleverly mentioned by Montez Ford. But when we had that whole mask man situation, Montez Ford was under the mask at one point for a couple of weeks. Again, we weren't supposed to know that. It wasn't supposed to be a thing. It was always supposed to be Austin Theory. But at the same time, he was under that mask because it was a possibility that he would be revealed as the masked man. So the talk of Montez Ford being a part of the division isn't new. It's been talked about before. It could have happened. We came close to it happening. So I do honestly think, and again, we now know that Logan Paul's going to be out for a few weeks. We've lost another member of the division through injury. They're now down to 2 guys and Paul Heyman. I think it's almost inevitable that Montez Ford joins the division. It may not have been a thing that was going to happen. I think it's now happening because of the Logan Paul situation, and it kind of works out because of the story with the Street Profits, and they're probably pivoted because of the Logan Paul thing. But I think it's inevitable. Montez Ford with division. Montez Ford with a Paul Heyman in his ear, as I said. You know, Montez Ford believes in himself, but he doesn't have the accolades or the resume to talk about being the best. Bron Breakker Bron Breakker has a better singles resume than a Montez Ford. So I don't think it's Montez Ford coming in and he is like, you know, you're kind of wondering who's the top guy in the group. I think it still will be Bron Breakker. But I think it will help Montez Ford to believe in himself even more and maybe challenge the idea of Bron Breakker being the main man. So yeah, I think that's where we're going. I think that's where it should go. What then? Okay, here's my question for you. What then happens with Angelo Dawkins? What is that going to be? What does that look like?
I think Dawkins gets a singles run, perhaps in the mid card. I do think that we do finally get the Angelo Dawkins versus Montez Ford moment. It could happen a number of ways. It could happen where if he doesn't join the division, but now you see his star rising, you know, Angelo Dawkins can very much be like, look, I'm not trying to play second fiddle to you. when I was hurt, you were more interested in your singles career anyway, if we're telling the truth. Like, you're just not going to leave me behind, and I'm going to prove that I was really the glue to make this happen. There's definitely a world where that is. The other side of it is, if Montez does join the Vision, it becomes very, very clear Angelo Dawkins is like, what are you doing, dude? We've been fighting against him the whole time. We've been trying to walk the straight and narrow, et cetera, et cetera. We've been frustrated. We've gone through a lot of things. You didn't have to go this route. Now you're going to, and then he can, because here's the thing. Montez, we talked about this with Kevin Knight earlier in the show, but before Kevin Knight was talking wild and crazy, Montez always had this edge to him when he would talk, where you're like, I don't know. Where you know, all right. Like, you talking strong. You're all right. All right. You know, so now I think Montez having the freedom to do that, if he does decide to go with the Vision, makes, again, an Angelo Dawkins Montez Ford war happen. I think following that moment is where Angelo Dawkins is going to have to figure out where he goes next. It obviously seems like him versus Montez is the obvious move, but after that is the real question. Can he establish himself as a solo star that doesn't need, because he's been in a tag team his entire WWE career, save those first few years in NXT. So, you know, and to his credit, I mean, he's been helping to train at the dungeon and all these other kinds of things. He's got the goods. The question is, where does he fit, and is he comfortable being his own guy?
I think for me, in terms of this story, with the way we are, where we are now, if, you know, as I said, I feel as though it's almost inevitable that Montez Ford joins the Vision or some kind of, you know, collaboration with them. I feel as though that would then add to, you know, the story between the breakup of the Street Profits in general. Whether that happens, whether Montez joining the Vision happens before Angelo comes back or afterwards, I don't think it necessarily matters. But again, it adds to the whole dynamic, or their dynamic, them splitting up. I think then what would have to happen for me, in my mind, for everyone to win, is that we have, you know, the Angelo Dawkins, Montez Ford feud direct between the two of them. And I feel as though Angelo Dawkins would have to be the one that comes out on top. I think Angelo Dawkins is the one that comes out on top, because that helps establish him as a solo star. I don't think Montez needs to have that. And I think you then still maybe focus a little bit more on Montez being the main man, but not at the detriment directly of Angelo Dawkins. What then happens after that, I don't know. It's not as easy to, you know, to predict. I still feel as though, regardless of who comes out on top in terms of their feud, Montez Ford would still be positioned in a better place in general. But that's why I feel as though Angelo Dawkins would have to kind of win that feud, or the, you know, the 2 out of the 3, or you know, the rubber match that they have eventually or whatever, just for the safety of Angelo Dawkins. I don't think it would be at the detriment of Montez either. So I think that's where that should go eventually. But yeah, I think we're on the cusp of this Montez Ford singles run. And I want to see where that goes. Yeah, I definitely want to see where that goes. I'm intrigued now. Very much intrigued. Layers upon layers. Oh, what happens when Bianca comes back? I know they never really interacted before, but does that mean they start to interact when, and you know, when she does come back? Will the dynamics be the same when she? That could add something to it as well. Interesting. Interesting indeed. Interesting indeed. Our time is short. Our time is actually gone. But I did want to give you the second few moments to mention and talk about the happenings of the weekend in terms of Arshay. Give me a rundown, a quick review. Don't give us too much because people need to go and watch the show. But give us a rundown of what happened at Arshay 15.
Yeah, Arshay 15, a huge event that took place this past Saturday from Bloom Studios in Charlotte, North Carolina. Just some absolutely incredible incredible action. Fantastic tag team matches that we saw, fantastic singles matches that we saw. We got the latest chapter in Darius Carter versus Darius Lockhart, which got very, very complicated. I can tell you that that night served as the final night for Caprice Coleman as commissioner of Ashe Wrestling based on what happened at the previous show. So that has thrown a lot of things into a bit of a tizzy at Ashe. The ending of the main event is must see. I don't want to tell you all what happened, but it is must see. I can tell you one of the major developments coming out of that is June 27th, the next show for Ashe Wrestling. It's called The World Is Yours, and it will feature for the first time in Ashe Wrestling a 30-man battle royal, which will determine the #1 contender for the Ashe Wrestling Men's Championship. So it's going to be special, and there's a lot of guys trying to get in there. A lot of guys already signed up to be a part of it. Listen, trust me when I tell you, you need to check out what happened at Ashe 15. You can do that by heading to patreon.com/Ashe Wrestling. Again, patreon.com/Ashe Wrestling. We also had a new merch drop as well. You can find that at AsheWrestling.com, and some really, really cool things are happening there. So definitely go check it out, AsheWrestling.com, patreon.com/Ashe Wrestling.
Brilliant stuff. And of course, Gerard, tell the people where else they can find you, what other great things you're doing in the wrestling world and other spaces as well.
For sure. You can find me at Bonnerfied across all of the social spaces, Instagram, Facebook, X, TikTok, Threads, all of those spaces. Of course, I'm here every Tuesday. You've got the Faction Reloaded every Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern or wherever that time frame is for you. Also, you've got my podcast, Bonnerfied Conversations, where it's non-wrestling conversation that you guys will enjoy. It drops every Tuesday, available on YouTube or wherever it is you get your podcasts, and all kinds of other really cool things are on the way. So definitely check it out again at Bonnerfied, and we'll keep you posted on when the Beast Cup Invitational Tournament honoring Shad Gaspard will drop. You guys will enjoy that.
Looking out for that one. The Beast Cup established itself last year, was it?
2 years ago. This is year 3.
Oh, this is year 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Always intrigued to see how that one plays out. Who's involved? Who ends up becoming the winner? And so many other things as well. I need to go check out Ashe 15 as soon as possible. Maybe as soon as I come off it, I'll be doing that. For sure. Guys, you can find us here every Tuesday, 3 p.m. UK time. Work it out wherever it is that you are. If you can't do that, you don't want to do that, you can just find us on demand on YouTube, of course. You can also, of course, follow me on Black Wrestling Alliance on Instagram. Also find me on TikTok. I need to get back in the space of getting on top of my stuff and being consistent with it. It's a bit of a drop off. I admit. We're getting back into it. The summer's coming. It's going to be red hot. Actions are red hot. Can't keep away from it. It's brilliant stuff. And as soon as I come off air here, I need to cool down. You lot see me sweating all show. It's madness. Wow. It's madness. It's madness. But guys, thank you once again for joining us, and we will see you again next time. See you later, folks.